Nigeria global leaders target $29 trillion African economy by 2050.
INEC meets party chairman on Anambra and FCT polls.
Nigeria advocates permanent seat on UN Security Council.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss 2025 Climate Change Action Plan.
And November 2021 marked a turning point for Nigeria, and that was when the climate change bill received presidential assent. It provided the required legal framework for the country's climate goals, as well as a long-term platform for achieving socio-economic sustainability and resilience in climate action.
Exactly, Victor. I know this act also provided a platform to achieve net zero emissions between 2050 and 2070, a commitment made at COP26 in Glasgow. If you recall, the Climate Change Act gave government the mandate to set a national climate change action plan, as well as a 5-year carbon budget with quantified annual objectives.
Well, that's not all it did. It also gave legal backing to the National Council on Climate Change and compelled private entities with 50 or more employees to develop annual goals for carbon emission reduction.
And the National Council on Climate Change has been at work since its inauguration in September 2022 and is now monitoring all segments of the society to ensure national targets are achieved. Nigeria's 2025 Climate Action Plan are so far centered on energy transition, sustainable land use, climate-resilient infrastructure, disaster risk management, and climate governance.
Now, there were other efforts of government targeted at fulfilling the country's pledges, and these include the National Renewable Energy Master Plan and the upcoming Green Bond Program.
And Nigeria is currently among countries highly impacted by climate change. Despite their low contribution to the challenge, it has also received very little global climate financing, Victor.
And this may explain why many still insist the level of commitments and action needed to address the issues of climate change, such as biodiversity, loss and pollution, are still serious global concerns.
Yes, indeed, and this is even more crucial as the world enters the critical 5-year stretch towards 2030, the much-awaited 10th year of action since the Paris Agreements will also climax at the end of this year. It is therefore now places a huge burden on countries to fulfill national climate targets to aid global efforts.
It becomes necessary to also mention that the Trump presidency and his decision to take the United States out of most agreements signed on climate change will also impact global outcomes on climate change.
Indeed, and there are so many opportunities in the carbon market that public and private organizations in Nigeria are advised to take advantage of to create jobs as well as generate revenue for government. The year 2025 Climate Change Action Plan is our focus on Good Morning Nigeria today. Welcome to the program. I am Jummai Yasov.
And I am Victor Azu. We are live on the network service of the NTA. A newspaper review with Chukudi Okuli Obaja comes up in a bit. And that will be right after the news with Comfort Amodu standing by. Good morning, Comfort.
Good morning, Victor and Jummai. Now, let's begin with the news on the Vice President, Kashim Shettima, joining other world leaders to push for the full implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area with a target to boost Africa's economy to $29 trillion by 2050. Shettima and the global leaders declared their nation's position during a forum of friends of AFCFTA on the sidelines of the ongoing 2025 annual meeting of the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland.
As we are talking, there are 220 million telecom subscribers in Nigeria, 163 million internet users. So this provides us with a vista of opportunities for empowering our people. The maximum we have ever gained from the process of oil was 35 billion in 2011. But India last year alone got about $120 billion from outsourcing alone. We are a young continent, and the future belongs to us.
And back in Nigeria and Anambra State, the stage is set for the governorship election on November 8th, and INEC is already engaging with party chairmen to ensure a seamless process as the country prepares for the pivotal election. INEC's proactive measures aim to guarantee transparency, credibility, and fairness in the electoral process.
Before we conducted the first set of by-elections in February last year, I recall that we appealed to you as leaders of political parties to nominate fresh candidates for these by-elections instead of serving members so that we don't have to conduct several by-elections. And I'm very happy to say that all the political parties responded positively.
Elsewhere, President of the Nigerian Senate, Godswill Akpabio, has emphasized the need for unity and collaboration among countries in Africa to foster innovation and also enhance security. Addressing the 2025 First Ordinary Session of the National Assembly of Côte d'Ivoire in Abidjan, Akpabio calls for strengthening bilateral ties between Nigeria and the West African country. And Akpabio applauded President Alassane Ouattara and the Speaker of the Ivorian Assembly, Adama Bitogo, for their leadership, which symbolizes reconciliation and unity.
De seulement 250 millions d'habitants, approche des prochaines élections, et je vous invite à répondre présent. Faites que vos réformes électorales traduisent la transparence.
Nigeria's military has intensified its efforts to crack down terrorists in Zamfara State, with recent ground and air operations yielding significant success. The provision of advanced warfare equipment and a proactive intelligence sharing system are credited for the progress. During his recent visit to Zamfara State, Defense Minister Mohammed Badaru Abubakar directed troops to capture the infamous bandit and terrorist leader Bello Turuji, dead or alive. This directive has reportedly led to substantial advancement in the military's efforts to combat insecurity in that region.
That are now stationed here to support the fight against terrorism and banditry in the Northwest.
It shows the commitment that if we work together as a team, we can succeed.
Nigerian's Foreign Affairs Minister Yusuf Tugar has made a strong case for Africa's permanent membership on the United Nations Security Council. Speaking at the World Economic Forum Summit in Davos, Sweden, Tugar emphasized that despite Africa being the focus of about 60% of the UN Security Council's resolutions, the continent remains excluded from having a permanent seat. Minister Tugar also highlighted Nigeria's sustainability or suitability to represent Africa on the global body, citing the country's leadership role and non-threatening nature. That's the news, but Good Morning Nigeria continues with Jumai and Victor after this break. Stay tuned. Good morning.
I am Oluremi Tinubu, the global and national Stop TB champion. Many people have asked why I've chosen to champion the fight against a disease like tuberculosis. My reason stems from a deep personal experience. I once had a friend who unfortunately fell ill and concealed the nature of his sickness until it was too late. Eventually, after he passed, we discovered he had tuberculosis. Sadly, due to the stigma and discrimination surrounding the disease, he would not speak up or seek for help. His death was a painful reminder that we could have intervened and saved a life if only we had known earlier. Tuberculosis is an airborne disease that primarily affects the lungs, but can also impact other parts of the body. Being airborne means anyone, regardless of their social economic status, can contract it. In Nigeria, one person dies of TB-related illness every 7 minutes, amounting to 206 deaths every day. Globally, one person succumbs to TB every 25 seconds, which is a staggering 3,456 lives lost daily. These deaths are entirely preventable because TB is curable if detected and treated early. If you or someone you know has been coughing for 2 weeks or more, coughing up blood, experiencing night sweats, or losing weight drastically, it might be TB. Please visit the nearest government hospital or primary healthcare center for proper diagnosis and treatment. TB treatment is free in all government and some private health facilities. Let us also remember not to stigmatize or discriminate against TB patients or those who have been treated for TB. Individuals who have been cured of TB cannot infect others. I call on all stakeholders, especially the private sector, to join us in the fight to end TB in Nigeria. Together, we can make a difference. Remember, TB anywhere is TB everywhere. End TB by 2030. Yes, we can.
The new Happic sachets. It has a thick formula, so all you need is just one sachet for your toilet bowl. It gives 10 times better cleaning and big savings too.
Wow, Helen!
Sparkling clean toilet with Happic sachet.
We don't like to eat better, more nutritious meals, more veggies, but we want it tasty and easy too. Knorr Cubes, that's the secret. Made with real ingredients like chicken, parsley, and garlic, and enriched with iron, so your meals are better for you and more delicious too. That's the cocoa. Let's give it some accolades. Change your world by changing what's on your plate.
If you want to become something, become a child again. Why be a patient? If you must worry, then worry about winning. Why worry about germs? When you come home, bring tales and stories. Why bring in germs?
Shield your families from germs. When Dettol is a part of every household bucket, then you and your family can stay protected from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Everyday use of Dettol keeps my loved ones protected.
The Nigeria Coat of Arms is the official seal that represents the authority of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, hung on the wall behind the seat of the principal officer of the government, supported by the portrait of the serving president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It has 7 features. The black shield stands for Good Earth of Nigeria. The silver wavy band stands for the confluence of rivers Niger and Benue. The 2 white horses stands for dignity. The yellow flora is a common wildflower throughout Nigeria. The red eagle stands for strength. The wreath is in our national colors of green, white, green. The motto, unity and faith, peace and progress, is written on a beautiful yellow ribbon, and it's a maxim for all Nigerians. Be a real Nigerian.
This Saturday, Wolverhampton Wanderers.
Taking this free kick smartly, and it is called towards goal, and it's a brilliant strike.
Arsenal.
Let's do goodness. On the ball in from Waneri, which causes problems, big problems. Dangerous delivery. Kai Havertz.
Wolverhampton Wanderers versus Arsenal, live on Sporty TV. Fortybet sponsors coverage of the English Premier League.
You're welcome back, and you're watching Good Morning Nigeria. Newspaper review is next.
All right, let me formally welcome you to the newspaper review segment, and welcome Chukwudi Okole Obaja, who is flipping through pages and making notes.
And also welcome you back, Victor. I've not seen you since last year.
You're the one who
back a long time ago.
Yeah, but I haven't met you. I haven't seen you.
You're the one
so just seeing him. So
I asked him the day I saw him. Well, you let me and Jumai and the others.
Many hundreds of seconds ago.
I hope you had a
You needed the
nice
time, my dear.
Yeah, you did.
I hope you enjoyed yourself.
Yes,
I tried.
And they probably appreciated your
Of
presence.
course they will.
Very
Thank
important.
you so much. So, Mr. Victor?
Okay, let's begin with the leadership. And it leads with this story. Counterinsurgency war. Troops closing on Turji. Kills second in command. And it has 2 riders. 24 others neutralized. Kingpin on the run. Turji's brother, Doso, ally Dambokolo, inflicted terminal wounds. That's according to the defense headquarters. And the story is on page 4. And just on a tiny strip above that story, NLC condemns 50% data hike, calls for nationwide boycott. That's on page 17. And below the nameplate, Nigeria, global leaders target $29 trillion African economy by 2050. That story is continued on page 7. And on the tiny boxes just to the right of the front page, immigration, Trump 6 raid in churches, schools. That one is on page 4. 9 pregnant girls rescued from Abuja home, page 4. We've spent 300 billion naira on area councils development. That's according to Wike, page 6. And Ekweremadu's wife returns from UK prison, page 7. That takes us to the blueprint. A number of similar stories here. On the front page of the blueprint, it is captioned, Deportations, Trump 6 raid on churches, schools, hospitals. With the rider, Panama files complaint with UN over Trump's threat to seize canal. All right, and above that, in tiny boxes, just below the nameplate, Ekweremadu's wife released from UK prison back in Nigeria, page 16. CBN unveils code to boost transparency ethics in Forex, page 21. And in sports, Nigeria willing to host all Africa games, that is according to DICO, page 32. And below the picture story here, featuring the INEC chairman, 72 hours after eliminating San, troops closing on Turji, neutralize second-in-command Kanawa allies. And the riders, Governor Rata, rules out negotiation with terrorists. Boko Haram attack Konduga community, kill 1 civilian JTF member, page 6. And finally, gunmen abduct medical doctor in Anambra, page 7. DSS files terrorism charges against Mahdi, page 14. And INEC fixes FCT area council polls for 21st February 2026, page 14. Jumai.
As I've got the Daily Trust newspaper, let's quickly go through it. As just below the masthead, we have Daily Trust dialogue holds today. You find details on page 4. FCT doctors embark on strike over 7 months on paid salaries. Details on page 16. NSCIA to FG implement policies that will alleviate poverty. And a side piece of the picture story you see there, my colleague Victor has already read it. 15 die in Kwara auto crash. Details on page 30. Damagum can't be removed until December 2025. That's the PDP chairman. You find details on page 25. NLC protest telecoms tariff hike threatens mass action. You'll find all the details on page 4. And the headlines in the Daily Trust newspaper: 1.4 trillion unsold goods recorded in 2024. That's coming from the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, with a rider, Nigeria heading towards hyperinflation. That's coming from economic experts. You want to know more, you go to page 3 and read up. Military kills Turji, second in command, other top commanders. Details on page 10. Mr. Chukwudi?
Is Nigeria still heading, or we're already in hyperinflation?
We're heading. We're already in it already.
I am spending 10,000 naira to buy what 2,000 could buy me
2 years ago.
2 years ago, 1.5 years ago.
Yeah.
So already it's hyper in my pocket. But let's pray that let's hope that the measures being taken by government, at the moment, would in the next 6 months begin to really show, some reduction in what you need to spend to live on a daily basis. Savings are completely wiped off.
Yeah.
Nobody's talking about that. There are two stories I would really like us to take up here. I'll go to Turji and the Army's policy of decapitation, which seems to be working. Let's go to deportation. Trump okays raid on churches, schools, hospitals. Trump has already shown everybody that it is controversy that he really works in. Somebody was analyzing him on CNN 2 days ago. He said Trump would rather have negative publicity than not have publicity at all.
Exactly.
But to the functionality of it all, what's important to us as a nation, the Indian authorities have agreed on how to take out the 18,000 undocumented people in the U.S. Government to government, they're already talking.
Yes.
Where are we in all of this? Because definitely some Nigerians are going to be affected by this.
Well, India knows the number of people that are in India, in America from India. Do we know the number of Nigerians in America?
Well,
do you know where they are?
Except if they faked their nationalities when they got in, except they faked their nationality when they got in. Otherwise, at the entry point, they would know where you came from, and such statistics could be got from them, even if we cannot know who is going where from our own shows. Our records will improve, I think so.
Yes.
But raiding schools and churches, hospitals, that sounds somehow.
That's why
I hope it doesn't get a backlash.
That is why he's Trump.
Yeah. It's Trump.
Revoking 80 executive orders in one night.
Yes. But the birthright citizenship.
No, it's under the Constitution. I think that there'll be a lot of debate on that. Yes.
Makes it practically impossible
for
you to do that. What he's arguing is children of undocumented parents would no longer be treated as people who have a right to American citizenship.
Yes.
But come to think of it, I am one of those who rather laugh at the scenario where a woman whose tummy is like this, getting a U.S. visa because she wants to have a child in the U.S. It sounds somehow to me. I don't know. Well, anybody who can afford it.
Let's come back home.
Turji.
And the NLC is urging Nigerians to reject telecom tariff hike. And it is predicating that call to action on the timing, which the NLC says is quite wrong, given the economic situation at the moment. And going further, it said for a worker earning the current minimum wage of 70,000 naira, that it means an increase from 7,000 to a staggering 10,500 per month, or 15% of his salary, a cost that is unsustainable.
First of all, I'm going to advise you, maybe Juma as well, to stop living dangerously concerning your data consumption, making calls, do that which is necessary. I have started switching on my airplane mode now, flight mode on my phone, so that my data does not. I started that only 1.5 weeks ago.
But we can't do that when you work with.
But I have to
like
call
NTA.
you. I have to
yes.
call you when I need your attention.
Yes, in NTA we get information by the minute.
It's okay.
By the minute,
it's
you
okay.
cannot afford to,
it's okay.
to off your data.
So when you are needed, you are offline.
You're offline, and that you know what, you know the repercussion.
Journalists have a way of blackmailing somebody.
No, you know.
So I take back my advice.
Yes.
But because I'm not going to short and not get sense. When you go home at 9 p.m. or 10 p.m., get home, switch off your data.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Yes.
At midnight.
It doesn't work.
You know that.
You have made up your mind to.
It doesn't work. You know, and you know.
Turji Bello.
Turji.
Is it Turji?
Turji.
Turji.
Yeah, Turji is
very good.
Second in command.
That name is more of the southwest.
No.
Anyhow, the policy of the decapitation, removing the head so that the body does not function anymore, is actually what the army is still pursuing. And it seems to have worked so far. Remember the kingpins that have been eliminated in the past 2 months.
Yes.
We hear his son was actually killed, which day? 2 days ago?
2 days ago,
I think so. And that they're closing in on him now. I would have said, why go audacious about something that should actually rely on intelligence? Tojo would know that they are coming and all that. But I think the army also considers that the information aspect of this is important. Do not despair. We are dealing with these people, and peace will return to the fatherland at the end of the day. I think that is what is behind making it so public. Otherwise, I would say, take him down, then tell us.
I like the fact that now the military are in attack mode instead of defense mode. So just go out there, attack them, and Nigerians are solidly behind our military. We're supporting them, and we hope they achieve.
Nigerian soldiers have never been cowards.
At all.
We stopped the wars in Liberia and Sierra Leone more than any other member of the common force.
Yes.
Part of what was happening was that the Nigerian army, the Nigerian forces were ill-equipped to tackle, starting from when the Tucano jets started coming in, some helicopters, military helicopters have been bought and all that. And it is bolstering their ego, their
morale.
Morale, that's the right word. And what we need to do now is support them in any way we can, because it's a hydra-headed problem that does not favor anyone. It's an ill-wind.
It's the hydra-headed snake that refuses to die. You know, you kill this head.
The insurgency is
you cut this one off, another one.
But then this is where intelligence comes to play, because if you have, it's probably easier and cheaper to preempt rather than to wait. It goes into full-blown mode, and then you begin to deal with it.
In everything.
Because the stages where they begin to come together should be known to security agencies.
Exactly. Now, something that concerns us, we live in Abuja, and now FCT doctors are embarking on a strike over 7 months unpaid salaries. It's a cause for concern for those of us living in Abuja.
When I saw that, the first thing that came to my mind was, how could we have allowed the salaries of FCT doctors? Is it an investigation, or is it a report attributed to somebody? Did anyone speak to them?
I think
it was just like the Info West and the Info Quest thing.
A reporter,
when a paper says it's an investigation, we're not doubting the credibility of our colleagues in the newsroom, but always take with a pinch of salt.
Yeah, this time around, I think it's an investigation. The reporter visited the Kubwa General Hospital on Wednesday morning.
It's okay.
Saw how patients who trooped to the facility for medical consultation were turned back as doctors were on strike.
Let's say that
it will last for 3 days as a warning before it will extend indefinitely if the doctors' demands were.
Thank God they're ringing a bell of alarm. So within the period, we might be able to. Because as we were saying yesterday, health is everything.
Health is wealth.
It goes beyond pleading with government to make dialysis free. I will never stop saying that thing. It becomes a death sentence on people who have paltry earnings when they say you've got to the end point of renal treatment. The end point is dialysis. Renal treatment. That's the last option. And for you to think that some people can't afford 30,000 to go, empty every, it's not fair. It sounds like a death sentence.
It is a death sentence. Yes. Well, we hope, the president is, looking into all these sectors. And
we can't afford for the doctors
with the minister,
to go
the health sector is improving, yes, especially primary health care. Well, on that note, we thank you, Chukwudi, for coming this morning. We have to let you go slowly. We have to let you go.
Calling me Dr. Chukwudi so that my salaries will be paid.
So, Chuks, thanks for coming.
It's okay.
See you again tomorrow.
And we'll be right back after this break.
Thank you.
From the Atlantic across the savannah to the Sahara, we rise, a land of the free, we know they tire. We dream great, our spirit is undying.
Resilient, rooted like palm tree, we sway in colors, we turn dark into light, we make solutions, we ignite passion, yeah. Each ethnicity is unique, we are more than just a nation. We are Nigeria, strengthening unity, we know they carry lives. We are Nigeria, together live the dream of a land with great destiny. We are Nigeria.
I am the real Nigerian. Brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
We don't like to eat better, more nutritious meals, more veggies, but we want it tasty and easy too. Knorr Cubes, that's the secret. Made with real ingredients like chicken, parsley, and garlic. And enriched with iron, so your meals are better for you and more delicious too. That's the cocoa. Let's give it some accolades. Change your world by changing what's on your plate.
If you want to become something, become a child again. Why be a patient? If you must worry, then worry about winning. Why worry about germs? When you come home, bring tales and stories. Why bring in germs?
Shield your families from germs. When Dettol is a part of every household bucket, then you and your family can stay protected from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Everyday use of Dettol keeps my loved ones protected.
Our major currency unit is the Naira, while the minor unit is the Kobo. They are both in notes and coins. The Naira is more than just a medium of exchange. It bears the images of our heroes. So, stop abusing the Naira. It is a criminal offense to spray the Naira at events. Stop stepping on the Naira. It's not your enemy. Do not squeeze, ruffle, or write on the Naira. Handling the Naira with dirty or oily hands can deface the Naira. Love the Naira as you love yourself. Be a real Nigerian. Do not abuse the Naira.
The federal government of Nigeria warns vandals of national assets, electricity transmission towers, cables, and other facilities to desist from this act of sabotage. Vandalism is a serious crime punishable under the law. Vandalizing electrical equipment will affect millions of Nigerians, including your loved ones. Remember that national assets belong to all of us, hence the need to protect them. Report all cases of suspicious movement around electrical facilities to security agencies. When you see something, say something. This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation in collaboration with the National Counter-Terrorism Center, NCTC, Office of the National Security Advisor.
Hey Nigeria, ready to breathe cleaner air and save money? Let's talk about gas. Drive with CNG, the smart, cost-effective choice. Fill up for less and travel further. Save money, save the planet. Switch to LPG for cooking. It's cleaner, healthier, and better for environment. Say goodbye to smoke and eye problems. Do you know Nigeria is a gas nation ranked 9th globally with over 209 trillion cubic feet of gas reserve? Gas isn't just for cooking and driving. It powers industries too. Cleaner, cheaper, and more efficient. And the best part, conversion centers are popping up everywhere. It's never been easier to switch to gas. Join the cleaner energy revolution. Choose LPG for cooking and CNG for your vehicles. Clean energy for brighter future. This message is brought to you by the Office of the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Gas, supported by the Nigeria Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, NMDPRA.
This Saturday, Borussia Mönchengladbach, Morecambe, watch live Borussia Mönchengladbach versus Morecambe on Sporty TV. Sporty Bet sponsors coverage of the German Bundesliga.
All right, many thanks for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria. And just before we go into our conversation, which is on the 2025 Climate Change Action Plans, let's take this background report to launch us into the discussion.
Nigeria's vulnerability to climate change is a pressing concern. With rising temperatures, changing rainfall patterns, and increased frequency of extreme weather events threatening its economy, agriculture, and human settlements. Despite contributing relatively little to global greenhouse gas emissions, Nigeria is among the countries most affected by climate change. Historically, Nigeria has faced unfair treatment in climate change affairs with global powers. Climatologists and sustainability specialists have pointed out that the country has received inadequate climate finance and technology transfer, hindering its ability to adapt to the impacts of climate change. Furthermore, Nigeria has been pressured to adopt stringent climate mitigation measures despite its limited contribution to global emissions. To address these challenges, the 2025 Climate Change Action Plans focus on 5 key areas: energy transition, increasing the share of renewable energy in the national energy mix; sustainable land use, promoting sustainable agriculture practices and reducing deforestation; climate resilient infrastructure, developing infrastructure that can withstand the impacts of climate change; disaster risk reduction, strengthening the country's ability to respond to climate-related disasters; and climate governance, enhancing the country's institutional capacity to address climate change. Initiatives such as the Nigeria Renewable Energy Master Plan and the Green Bond Program are already underway to promote sustainable development and reduce Nigeria's carbon footage. As Nigeria works towards achieving its 2025 climate change action plans, it's essential for citizens, policymakers, and stakeholders to understand the challenges and opportunities ahead. The country requires support from the international community to access climate finance, technology, and capacity building programs to effectively address the impacts of climate change. Join us on this episode as we discuss the implications and potential solutions with our expert guests.
Thank you, Ibrahim Hamidu, for the background reports. Now let's welcome to the studio this morning. Joining us here is Dr. Nkiruka Chidia Madukwe, Special Presidential Envoy on Climate Change and DG CEO, National Council on Climate Change Secretariat. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Pleasure to have you join us. And we're also being joined in the studio by Professor Awal Farouk Abdul Salam, Professor of Applied Meteorology and Environmental Sustainability, Kaduna State University. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Nigeria.
It's a pleasure to have you.
All right, we have also been joined for this conversation by Representative Samuel Onuibo, a former member of the House of Representatives and sponsor of Nigeria's Climate Change Bill, now Act. Rep. Onuibo is currently sitting on the board of Northeast Development Commission as Southeast Representative. A pleasure to welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much indeed. Good morning, Nigerians.
And joining us via Zoom, I'd like to introduce, of course, from Niamey, Professor Mansour Bako Matazu, Climate Services Expert at the World Meteorological Organization Regional Climate Center, Ahmed, Niamey, in Niger Republic. He is also a former or immediate past Director General of NIMET. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, and good morning, Nigerians. Thank you.
So let's begin the conversation, gentlemen and lady. From here, we'll begin with the lady so that we keep to the ladies first, right?
Yes, we have to balance the equation here.
Yes. But what are the key components of Nigeria's 2025 climate action, and how do they align with, the goals of the Paris Agreement?
So again, good morning, Nigeria. Very important again was the part to reduce emissions, and that's what is very key with regards to the Paris Agreement. How do we reduce emissions, ensure that we stay within the 1.5, we're already in the 1.5, but at least stay within the 2 degrees. And so you see us gearing towards technologies for the adaptation, technologies for mitigation, renewable energy, which of course focuses, that is part of mitigation, but as a country again is also driving towards adaptation and saying what can we do to ensure we enhance climate resilience and adaptive capacity of the country, being that again we are highly vulnerable to the impact of climate change, and that is further exacerbated by the existing vulnerabilities that we're dealing with. That's the fulcrum of the climate change action.
Have we taken off? Well, it's January. I don't want to ask for a progress report, but have we taken off? January is almost coming to an end.
Yes, because we need to know what it tends to, to achieve the focus.
So one of the first things we're doing as a secretariat is because we're taking the bull by the hand, and of course focusing on the theme amplifying nature-based climate solutions. We are going this next week. We are going to the Niger Delta mangrove forest, because mangroves are one of Nigeria's low-hanging fruits with regards to carbon sequestration, with regards to coastal resilience, and there's a lot of potentials with regards to the mangrove increasing sustainable livelihood for the communities. And so my team and I are going to the 9 states in the Niger Delta mangrove forest to see for ourselves what the situation is with regards to mangrove restoration. With the opportunity given to me to attend the Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week, I had engagement with the Environment Agency Abu Dhabi, and where we spoke potentials for knowledge transfer with Nigeria to learn from what Abu Dhabi is doing with regards to Abu Dhabi Mangrove Alliance and all the opportunities with regards to mangrove sustainability. So again, for us, so stock take for January. We're already taking the bull by the horn. We're going to be at the creeks for the next 2 weeks to see for ourselves what it is. We're also having the town hall meeting. We're developing a roadmap, Nigerian mangrove roadmap on mangrove restoration, conservation, and protection, because we identified that one of the key actions that needed to be taken with regards to amplifying nature-based climate solutions is developing that roadmap for mangrove restoration. We do not have that. Our laws, mangrove is scattered along our regulations, but there is no one policy. And even in the forest policy that we do have, the National Forest Policy is mentioned there, but is not a standalone. But this is and I was so excited when one of the professors in Abu Dhabi was glowingly explaining how precious Nigeria's mangrove is, and saying that Nigeria's mangrove is one of the best in the world. And we have as many as 3-4 species of our mangroves, and letting me know how, with regards to carbon sequestration, we're actually having a gold mine that we have not tapped into. So what we're doing is developing that roadmap, which can say very clearly what Nigeria's position is with regards to mangrove restoration. That is a serious gold mine for us. And so with that roadmap, we're also able to attract finance. Because when you talk about blue carbon, you're also thinking about the carbon market as well. Opportunity for the carbon market, opportunity for the community as well, right? So this is what we're doing, the town hall meeting, and also dovetailing to an arts mangrove exhibition that we're having in March. So you see, we've already started the ground. We've hit the ground running.
You've got to hit the ground running, yes. And you know, you talked about going to the south for, you know,
Niger Delta.
Niger Delta, yes. You know, we have... So let's hear from you. I'm going to stay with you still. The level of collaboration, acceptance by the subnationals, because we know the impact of climate change is mostly felt in the grassroots, in the subnationals. So how acceptable are your, interventions to the subnationals, and what is their reaction? How are they, accepting whatever it is you bring to them and tell them that we need, because you have to insist, we need to do this. It's not just on paper. We need to practicalize what we're doing in Nigeria, because in the real sense of the word, we're still left behind when it comes to climate change advocacy, don't you think?
Thank you so much. I would say that we do a lot of climate advocacy. We've been doing that for a number of years, especially when you're talking about environmental protection, which ties to it. When I first joined, one of the very key things for me was, how do I ensure that there was the synergy, closing the gap between the subnationals and the nationals, and we're doing that very efficiently. So, ma'am, permit me, please. I wouldn't say you have to insist. I would say that you have to co-create.
Okay.
So there's something about partnership when you tell somebody, we're together in this boat, we swim or we sink together. And that's the beauty of the partnership with the subnationals and the nationals. And I really want to thank the subnationals. They've been extremely supportive, especially the state commissioners of environment. Concerning this technical site visit, we've been communicating with the commissioners for the 9 states, and speaking with the environment commission for the 9 states, and they've been very supportive. And not only that, we're bringing them plus the Lagos commissioner to the town hall meeting in Calabar on the 4th of February, and they're very much hands-on with what it is we're doing, because we want to know that we're co-creating this pathway. It's not about the national and no. We're co-creating. We're going to sink or swim, because Nigeria is all of us. And again, this, like you indicated, climate impact happens at the subnational.
Yes, it does.
And until you get it right, we are not getting it anywhere. So there's a need to have that handshake, and very important. She's I call her my sister, and I'm very proud of her. I'm doing a shout out right now on national TV. She's the first female director general, Cross River Council, Climate Change Council. Wow. And so we're working in collaboration with her to drive the town hall meeting. This woman is fantastic in what she's doing, really. And she's bringing on board the governor. The governor of Cross River State will be there at the town hall meeting to ensure that there is state ownership as well with what it is we're doing. Cross River has one of the forests, big forests in Nigeria. And if we can get it right at that space, I think Nigeria will be able to make a world of difference. So it's collaboration.
All right, let's give you a breather while we get to other people. And I'd like to get to Representative Samuel Onibo. You are the dreamer. Along the line, there may have been contributions, changes here and there, but you conceived and pushed for this climate change law. And that means you saw something. And I'd like to ask, are we up to the minute? Are you impressed with where we are in implementing both the spirit and the letters of the law at this time?
Thank you very much indeed. To be honest with you, I think we are making gradual but steady progress. And the reason I say so is because the president himself has been driving most of our climate actions. And do not also forget that by the provisions of the law, the president is the chairman of the National Council on Climate Change. When my sister was talking about partnering with the subnationals, we were deliberate in making sure that the subnationals were captured in the climate change law, such that whenever you hold the council meeting, you are expected to have there, by the provision of the law, the chairman of the governors forum. And in addition to that, you also have the president of associations of local governments. That is to ensure that climate change does not happen and does not start and stop at the villa. Because apart from the little grass around the villa, the areas where these things happen are in the villages. So for me, with the president exercising leadership on climate issues, maybe I'll go back to 2023, shortly after he assumed office. In November of that year, when he presented his first budget before the National Assembly, if you go through that budget, you'll see that he devoted about 3 paragraphs talking about actions to be taken and how he has directed his appointees to ensure that when we go to Dubai, that was in 2028, that we should look for ways to attract, investments and all that. And then he has followed it up by inaugurating, the Carbon Council, where he appointed the DG of National Council on Climate Change and also the head of the FIRS, that's Federal Inland Revenue, out there in Dubai. And then we have the Evergreen City. We have so many other actions. And of course, recently in Abu Dhabi, he also called on investors from outside to come and participate in our green bond, which is supposed to be collaborated by the National Council on Climate Change in line with the provisions of the law. So for me, we are taking the steps. Yes, it's not been easy, it's not been rosy, because like you have National Council starting off just about 2 or 3 years ago to be able to coordinate everything about climate change in Nigeria, and that's the law, so that you have proper coordination and not for people to be operating in silos. You heard what she said, well, we're doing all these, talking of where we were before the National Council came into place. So for what we thought about, lawmaking requires all hands being on board. But what we thought about, what we dreamed, I think gradually we are getting the shape, is becoming clear, the responsibilities are becoming very well defined and carefully executed. More so when Mr. President is the one driving and showing leadership. So I'm encouraged that the law is being followed.
That's quite interesting. You were part and parcel of the the movement to make sure that Nigerians are aware of climate change, and it's so impressive. We'll come to you on that later on. Now let's bring in Professor Awal Farouk Abdusalam into this conversation. Let's take a look at some of the components of the climate change plan 2025. First is energy transition. So what more can you tell us about it?
Energy transition.
Energy transition, yes.
Well, and a very interesting and important aspect of the component. But before I said anything about energy transition, I would like to I'm happy. Let me say that I'm happy with what the council is doing, and I'm happy with a specific component of the plan being transparent.
Yes, transparency.
Transparency. This is what we've been calling for. Because like my big brother said, it's something that they don't want it to happen in the villa, and that's it. With transparency, researchers and Nigerian citizens will know what is going on about it. So this is a very good plan, though there are some missing links, missing points, but I hope maybe it will be covered in the 2026 or 2027. We'll come to that. But when we come to energy transition, this is one very key, important aspect of the entire discourse on climate change. Why I say that Nigeria is a country with a population of over 200 million, with great energy deficit, and The opportunities are there, but enhancing them, coordinating them, and delivering them for people to have access is a big issue. Let me give you a simple example. The cooking gas. We have a national, plan for it, and still a troubling issue. The prices are still very high, fluctuating from, high to very high, if I can say. Accessibility is becoming very low. We are lucky in the last 5 years, because in the last 10 years, what researchers show is that households, very few households are interested in using cooking gas. Some are either scared of it because of, issues, a lot of issues surrounding it, which are not through explosion. But people gradually started using it, because of the clean energy, because of its easy, way of, and the price as well. It's cheaper than using, a woodlot too. But it's becoming high. This is an area that I really, really want to see the coordinating council, venturing into it, because all the working plans are there. It's just the implementation. If we can have, a city like Kaduna or like Lagos with 80% of their population using fuel wood, then we are still at the back seat. And
what does that mean for climate change?
It means that we are not fulfilling our own, the promise that we made to the international community. It's saying that we are still killing our forests because this wood is coming directly from our natural forest resources, which the DG is saying they are going to use the natural way to, to mitigate climate change. It means that we are polluting the air. It means that we are exposing, especially people that are going into the kitchen, to, a lot of health-related issues.
People like us.
Sure.
The women.
I don't want to say women because we also go to the kitchen.
Oh, come on.
But the local women, really, in local households and communities, it's a very dangerous, environment they are operating. So that is one about the energy, fuel wood. When you come to the issue of, renewable energy, this is an area, a very interesting area also, that we really need to see actionable, plans going on, making the solar energy, facilities accessible and affordable for people to use. And this includes policy on importation, policy on VAT, even within the local, within Nigerian environment, to make sure that people can access these renewable energy facilities and make use of it. If we see that, then we can say, okay, transition is setting in. But as of now, it is too little and too small, really.
Sorry, can I just jump in? Sorry, please.
Yeah, before we go to the Zoom, yes.
Yes, thank you. So my apologies. I just wanted to just add a bit of this thing. I would say that we are taking, like Honorable Nibo said, we're taking steady steps towards ensuring that Nigeria is transiting our energy systems, and like the action plan says, increasing renewable energy in our mix, and that's why the government is very, very key on increasing the manufacturing of renewable energy solutions in the country, because that's going to address what Professor said. The reason why it's expensive is because we're importing it. And we have found out that if we continue to import, it is not sustainable. Nigeria has the critical minerals for the batteries. And so why can't we have the processing plants? And these are being put in place. And that's why in every forum I go to, I said there's a need for the private sector to come into this. The government, unfortunately, can only do as much as it can. Public funding can only go a little way, but with private sector finance, we go a whole lot way. And so I'm really calling out to the private sector to buy into the climate action plan of the country, to understand that it is not just government's job to ensure a climate resilient Nigeria. It is also private sector. And you can see in the act as well, MDAs, private sector and individuals are part of it, to show that it's a collective effort. And so when we're thinking about a transited Nigeria, energy transited Nigeria of 2060 net zero plan, 2070 net zero plan, you're thinking about a country that is driven, that goal is driven by private sector, because it's private sector that will bring in that finance that we need. So how do we address that? Because you're talking about the gas. We need infrastructure to pipe the gas. Private sector comes into this. So please, private sector is very important to address.
I'm sure they're listening to you now.
All right. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
DG. But let me get to Professor Matazu. We are gradually bringing it home. And I'm going to ask, how do we get the people, the ordinary people, more involved? For a lot of them, the kind of jargons that are associated with climate change makes it a bit difficult to comprehend. So when you are saying it, you just say, look, okay, that's one of them. But how do we get the people more involved, getting them to understand what the issues are and the part that they have to play in all of this?
Thank you very much, and very warm greetings from Niamey. Good morning, Nigerians, and also greetings to the studio personalities. First of all, to say that the issue of climate change is a social justice issue globally, whereby the most advanced economies are the one producing the greenhouse gases, and the developing and the least developed economies contribute to less than 5%. And unfortunately, also this in African countries, out of the 10 most vulnerable countries globally, so out of every 10 countries, 7 are from Africa. And that shows really the vulnerability of our economy and also our population. And all these impacts of extreme events due to climate change, due to climate variability, are being felt at the grassroots level. And so what is really very critical here is partnership. I'm happy to hear from my sister. I remember we met at Azerbaijan during the COP29, and I also raised an important issue of coordination at the national level of relevant departments and agencies of government that are doing a lot in terms of climate monitoring and also in terms of climate adaptation and mitigation. So if you permit me, in the country there is abundant work scattered within MDAs and also research community. So to be able to reach the last mile, and that is what the World Meteorological Organization emphasizes, that whatever services in terms of climate adaptation, climate mitigation, early warning system, so the last mile, meaning the last pocket, meaning the community people at the district level, should be fully integrated in all the services. So meaning that we need to establish our baseline in the country. And if you permit me on the screen, I will show a document that was published just some few years ago by the country, Climate Change Adaptation Mitigation in the country and how vulnerable it is. So this used over 100 years, thanks to NIMET, and also the researchers were selected from different geopolitical and eco-climatic zones of the country. So I think there is abundant knowledge and also of local adaptation, which should be integrated, local mitigative actions that exist in the country. So I will hereby advise that there is need for more effort of coordination at the parallel level, at the national level, and then also more coordination at the vertical level between central government, the national government, and also the state and the local government levels. So on this is good to leverage on the existing frameworks. I know since 2013, Nigeria has proposed the National Framework for Climate Services, whereby you have all the actors involved in terms of producers of service, and then also in terms of research, and also linking to the users, so that all these actions we are bringing in terms of mitigation, clean energy, transition, adaptation, smart agriculture. So we need to integrate localized knowledge. African farmers, rural populace, people in the country they have abundant local knowledge that needs to be integrated into this. So I will suggest that national framework document is lying somewhere, and many African countries have adopted their own. If you look at the WMO Global Framework website, you see that Nigeria also needs to ratify that document. So if I may now appeal to the National Climate Change Council, because the ratification and implementation of that document will fast track the achievements of most of the climate change adaptation and mitigative actions that are being proposed in the country. And of course, also my brother, Professor Awal, the involvement of the research community is very critical, whereby, because there's a lot of abundant knowledge that exists in that quarters. So that framework brings all the actors together so that all adaptation, mitigations, and any other early warning system is taken into consideration of the users. So we are going to put the users in the driver's seat, and that is what the center here in Niamey also of WMO that coordinates at continental level application of climate services. So we need to see user interfaces being established in the country under the National Climate Change Council, whereby you have agri user interface platforms, you then also have the energy, you have the environment, and then also health and other sectors. So by the time you have this user interface, it becomes a marketplace whereby you have the producers of service, you have the private sector, and then you have representative of the users. And by doing that, you're getting well connected in the value chain, and most of the activities will be fast-tracked in terms of the implementation because there is high vulnerability in the country. If you check the climate change document published by NIMED and other partners in the universities, it shows how vulnerable we are because we have seen a lot of increase in temperatures, heat waves is increasing, the rate of deforestation is over 380 hectares per annum. And it's really very scary that we need to take this in all the fronts, whereby we should be doing adaptation, mitigations, and other actions together. Because if not, there will be a lot of gaps in implementation. But I'm happy with the framework of the NCC and also the coordination they're having. And also I want to congratulate my brother, the legislator that sponsored this very important bill that materialized into these commissions. But I also want to mention that the country is doing a lot and needs to also create a lot of partnership at the continental and at international level. Also beyond energy transition, we can attract a lot of funding to the country through some of this partnership. And also the center is also open to this. And I'm happy also to extend hands of partnership to the country on this.
Still with you briefly, you know, the Paris Agreement, you know, represent a significant global, effort to tackle climate change through cooperation and communication. And you talked about being capital intensive, you know, the fight for climate change to ensure that countries come on board. Now, you are at the World Meteorological Organization and Regional Climate Center. How did you receive the news of the immediate withdrawal of the United States of America from the Paris Agreement? And how do you think, talking about cost, and how do you think this will, affect or impact climate change, advocacy around the world?
Thank you very much for that important question. As I made mention earlier, that the issue of climate change is a social justice whereby the major polluters needs to be more responsible. So the announcement by the new U.S. president was really very heavy blow for America being one of the heaviest polluters to back out of the Paris Agreement, meaning that there could be, and definitely there will be cut in the climate financing. And also, you remember also part of these promises for the creating the energy emergency to produce more oil within the country. And that will also mean some more emission of the greenhouse gases. And that will affect the adaptation and mitigation, and of course the clean energy. So it's really, and that is why scientists really need to continue to speak to the decision makers in the language that the decision makers understand. And that is why WMO is really emphasizing the link between science and policy. So science should go beyond science for science, science for development. Science should not be science for service. And that is what WMO is really advocating. I know it will take almost 1 year before the US should be able to officially back out, but it will really slow down the issue of climate finance globally. But I would like to advise, as a country, Nigeria, there are many windows, there are many organizations that offer projects in terms of carbon credit, in terms of climate monitoring, local adaptation projects in different multi-sectoral units and approaches. So I advise that really America is backing out, but if you look at how America has been impacted by the effect of climate change, they are really getting the heat, and I'm sure there will be a turning point to this. But we should continue to be more responsible environmentally, even though we emit less than 4%, but we are most vulnerable. And that means that we should do more actions at the local level, so that some of these international shocks will have minimal effect to us. So I would want to advise, as a country, to be able to coordinate more with regional partners that will be able to attract many funding. There are different funding windows under different organizations that could be attracted globally, in addition to the Paris Agreement implementation framework. But it's quite unfortunate, and as scientists, this is one of our dull moments. But really, we're really going to continue to stress more on this. And I know also in Brazil, there will be a lot of actions that need to be pushed, and we'll continue to do this. So, but generally, we need to do more of local adaptation and also local mitigative actions that will be able to control this. Recently, United Nations made a statement that climate doesn't stop at borders, and how we manage this risk also shouldn't ever stop at the borders. So we are living under the same umbrella, and I'm sure most of the systems that pass over West Africa are the ones that are producing the hurricane and storms in America. And recently, they are just coming out of the incidents of the forest fire. And all these are as a result of some of the triggers of extreme events that creates more convective activities that triggers forest fires. But as a country, I think we are doing well. So we need to do more to be able to have shocks so that some of these international politics decisions within the climate arena will not have much effect on us.
Professor Matazu, thank you very much for your intervention. And since you are talking challenges, I'd like to get back to Representative Samuel Onwibo. Now, the U.S. pulling out impacts finance. That's one aspect, international finance. But locally, what are the biggest challenges that Nigeria faces in implementing the 2025 climate plan action plan?
One is awareness. Awareness is key. Because once the players, different, we've talked about vertical and horizontal coordination. Once these players are aware of their roles, I'm sure that we'll be able to make progress. In fact, he was talking about getting the rural community and all that. And that's why the law in itself has provisions for teaching climate change issues in primary, secondary, and tertiary institutions. That's there in Section 26 of the Act. So the reason is for all hands to be on deck. Now, we have also talked about the governance, climate governance issues within the subnationals. If you check very well, you will now find that states like Gombe, Lagos, and all that, they're all taking their own local actions. And some have even come up with their climate change councils, just like you talked about Cross River. So if we coordinate these efforts, just like you said, we don't have to really rely, wholly. Yes, we need the climate finance. But you can also see that we are issuing green bond, the third tranche of our green bond. We issued the first one in 2017, the second in 2019. And from the money that we raised from those issuances, we were able to first specific areas, for instance, energy within the universities. So we can handle these things once we are aware that we are not going to rely on anybody. Where the person wants to return to 1796 years of George Washington, where they were practicing exclusive isolationism. That's the person's business. But right now, I want to say that if you go to countries like China, Germany, and all that, they have all moved on issues of transition. They're not waiting for anybody to tell them as a headmaster, this is what you have to do. The only disadvantage here is that you pollute and you do not want to be held accountable. That's the only thing. But for us, once we create this awareness, Section 27 of the law talks about, nature-based solutions. There are things we were doing in the communities in those days as we were growing up to protect our environment, stop local erosion, and all this. These are things we can continue to do. So the idea that we are going to go back to 1796 of George Washington is not going to be possible because nations have moved, ideas have moved. Recall, when he first came, he pulled out shortly after, the Paris Agreement was entered into in 2015, December. So he pulled out in early 2017. But other countries have moved in and provided, in fact, you need to know, for instance, what has happened in Germany, the energy mix is moving close to 60%, relying on renewables. The same thing with even Britain, that is also relying on North Sea oil. They have all moved. So as a nation, we have that responsibility to locate the things we are supposed to do, make sure we do them knowing that we are on our own. We are not relying on anybody because look at the disappointment. So look at the shock. But I don't expect the world to be too shocked by this because he's been threatening that he was going to do this, and he did it the first time. So with what the nations around the world have been able to do on the issue of climate change, some of them are oil producing, but they have gone 80%. Go to Sweden, go to Norway, you see what they have been able to do. So we also should be able to do that. But more importantly, is proper coordination of policies, proper execution of the laws, following the laws as they have been clearly, enacted. Anywhere where we have omissions, like you said, well, maybe there are one or two things that need to be. Those things can be strengthened, but let's follow the law. And I'm happy that Mr. President is exercising leadership in making sure that we do the right things. And the reason why we did the law that way, maybe I should explain it now, is because we realized from some of us who were commissioners in states and other places that unless the appointer brings in those he appointed, sometimes you see resistance, which is why I came up with the idea of peer, jealousy, where the equals sometimes resist one of them being on top of whatever that is happening. So with Mr. President being at the apex, sitting at the council, directing, you would just see changes. And of course you must have noticed that with what he did in 2023, the movement in Dubai, actions he has taken, the evergreen issue, now that he was in Abu Dhabi and saying, come and invest in our green bond. You are going to witness so many things happening along that line. The other thing I want to say, because he was talking about energy, is that the Electricity Act 2023 is a game changer for the nation, as far as renewable energy and all the rest of them are concerned. Why? That act makes it possible, and that's why the states have keyed in, for the states to come up with their own electricity laws, and that way you'll be able to set up, the kind of energy that you need to do irrigation, to do agriculture, without waiting for NEPA or PHCN or whatever we are calling it now. So that law, combined with the provisions of the Climate Change Act, they have the potential to help us move in the right direction without waiting for anybody.
Yes.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Just
go
a
ahead.
moment, so that we don't break this link. You did mention earlier that the law provides for teaching of climate-related subjects in schools. And I had asked earlier, you know, what we were doing to bring the ordinary people in. If we start at that level, I'm sure that we'll be making a lot of progress. So I'm going to ask the DG. I don't think we have started. My kids should be able to tell me. So have we started, and why haven't we started?
I know that the Ministry of Education has had some models on climate change for the lower schools, the lower grades, but I don't think that has been upscaled already, and so that is part of what it is we're working on, because of course Rome wasn't built in a day. So those are part of the things in the works for us for this 2025 that we're upscaling. And very important for us, yes, education in the primary schools, also education in the community level. And that's what we're doing from next week, to engage the community in themselves. And when I had the conversation with recently, I said, you know, we're in the process of reviewing the NDCs. And one of the key outcomes from the NDCs will be the child's NDC.
Okay.
I don't know if you
What does it mean?
The child's NDC.
Okay.
So the NDC is a big document. It's very technical. The nationally determined contribution document that we're going to submit this year, right? It's something that anybody can read. But does a child understand what the NDC is? So that's part of the outcomes we're coming with for the child's NDC. So that's one of the things we're doing differently that hasn't been done before.
Yes, you're doing
So
differently. So how are
that.
you collaborating with the National Orientation Agency, you know, for, you know, because they are at the forefront of raising awareness on issues,
and the
government
media.
issues, yes, and big. So
The
the media, that's what we're doing right now, you know. It's
One of the first things I did this
yes.
year was to have a media interactive session, because I wanted to understand how can we bridge the gap between the National Council on Climate Change Secretariat and the media, because the media is very much at the forefront to what it is we do. The media is how we can educate, whether it's audio, whether it's visual, we can use the media. And so for us, the media is our partner for life, really. The National Orientation Agency, I have reached out, and I believe that they will get back.
Okay, they'll get back to you.
I have reached out to them too, because I identified them very early on as my extremely low-hanging fruit. The NOA has offices in the 36 states of Nigeria. My own was like, speak no further.
Yes.
If I'm with this agency, I think I'm able to sort out the climate education issue.
Yes.
And just yesterday, I spoke with an NGO, and we are in the works developing a 6-month climate literacy program. It's going to be virtual, and the participants will have a certificate at the end of the program, but 6 months free. They're not paying anything, all on us, because that's our job. That's what we're supposed to do.
All on the government.
All on the government.
Okay, let's bring in Professor Awal Farouk into this conversation now. We've been talking about the green bond, and we all know that climate change is capital intensive. Now let's talk about how this country, Nigeria, can establish and develop a green bond market, and so that can support the development of guidelines and listing requirements for the green bonds in such a way that investors will come in, invest in the country, and then we have the capital to do. We don't need to go out looking for money outside, do we?
Sure. But I think I also want to chip into the issue of awareness. The NOA, the media, but even the media, you have to look at the structure, you have to look at how people interact with the media. The local people in the northern part of the country, as for example, listen to
Radio.
FM stations. Not only radio, FM stations, because they speak in their local languages and their local dialects, they understand more. And also, we have a huge number of social media influencers, which our youth, which is one of the target of the action plan to train the youth or to have a youth summit, something like that.
Yes,
the youth spends a lot of their time on the social media. And to capture them or to bring them in to discuss, you need influencers that they listen to be part of this conversation. This is very important for the Coordinating Council to note. But when we come to the carbon bond, I mean the green bond, the carbon credit, this is one of the areas that I am calling an opportunity in the issue of climate change. We always talk about the doom, the disaster, the risk. But when we're talking about bond, the green bond and carbon credit, this is an opportunity. It's a business opportunity that people can make money out of it. Let me give you an example of one of the Southeastern Asian country, I think specifically Malaysia. For the past 15, 20 years, I know they have this a policy that government workers, if voluntarily, if you want, you can have a private forest. You know, in Europe, they have this private forest, act that's there. And you plant trees, especially trees that are, growing faster. And then even if you cut them down, they can sprout. And that will be your retirement savings. You have a forest that you can cut down after 3 years. And it's not only about selling the trees after cutting them down, but it's about earning the carbon credit. Because what you are doing there, you are storing the carbon, and you are sequestering the carbon, and you are, helping in producing clean air. So you will, if we have the structure or the infrastructure in place for carbon credit, people will earn money from, having private forests, which that is what we want, people to take ownership of, in fighting, climate change. And I know a lot of civil servants, especially, will key in. And a lot of people living in local communities will key in. And that will boost the the green bond, and that will even give way for the investors to come in, especially in the savannah. Because in the savannah region, that is where the forest has been vandalized. The forest resources have been vandalized, seriously, because of the huge population, because of the, absolute relative poverty that is really there. So people rely mostly on these forest resources for their, daily activities. But if we can have this policy of private forest and, have the market in place, people know that they can earn money, and this is not just one-off. It's going to be, after every 3 years. I know in Kaduna, in the southern Kaduna, I know somebody that own this private forest, and he's telling me that was about 5 years ago. After every 3 years, he sells this, he makes millions out of this private forest. Yeah. And these are eucalyptus trees that if you cut, they sprout and grow again after 3 years. So there are so many innovations that we can bring into this, and will boost the green bond, and everybody will be happy. The government will be happy. The climate change community will be happy. And this, the ordinary citizens.
And you also be happy, because to you, climate change is life.
Yeah, sure, of course. And we are improving, like I said, clean, clean environment, clean air as well. So it's a win-win-win, project.
All right. Thank you very much, Prof. It's getting more interesting, really, but we have to go on a break now, so that when we return, the conversation will continue to the last stretch.
The business environment, to be honest with you, has been extremely hard on most Nigerian women's businesses, and of course harsh for a number of reasons. There is no way you would increase or move a subsidy and increase the price of fuel that it doesn't have the counter effect. It has been very challenging for so many women. I know that a lot of them have cried in one way or the other to us to find ways of intervening, but that is not to say that it is all doom and gloom. We will still have a few percentage of women that are thriving in this economy, but but we hope that we'll be able to get a larger percentage. One of the things I've seen with even our local purchases now is that people are buying more made in Nigerian options of food, of clothing, and so on and so forth than the imported. So that again is helping some of our industries thrive. Surprisingly, the telecommunications is still doing well, and the reason is very simple. A lot of people are going for online options of skills in terms of training, communications, even remote working. And so you will see that people that provide services around those areas also thrive. But I think at the end of the day, it's about partnerships, collaboration, and influencing power from especially the private sector and even the public sector. But we really need the public sector to drive a number of things, especially policies, because the public sector has the national spread above even whatever we can do in our own small way. What has happened over the years is that even the government, for example, is being pulled from different angles by all these stakeholders. We need to harness ourselves to have strategic focus areas, and we should all be moving in the same direction, not using a competitive approach, but a collaborative approach. Secondly, in collaboration, we need to move with large clusters of decision makers. Instead of, the process of reaching out to individuals is painstakingly long and it takes time. And so we need to engage these stakeholders on a larger platform. I think it's very important to identify where you can get help in your own little way. And one of the things I've realized is that when you operate in silo, it is difficult for you to lift yourself out of the situation. Identify ways you can do what you are doing in a simpler way. And if what you are doing is no more profitable, why not find out what can you do in the meantime that will help you? You need to think outside the box and then connect. What you can do is also identify people and become a cluster to provide a service that ordinarily you cannot do alone.
If you want to become something, become a child again. Why be a patient? If you must worry, then worry about winning. Why worry about germs? When you come home, bring tales and stories. Why bring in germs?
Shield your families from germs. When Dettol is a part of every household bucket, then you and your family can stay protected from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Everyday use of Dettol keeps my loved ones protected.
This Sunday, live on Sporty TV. Laps.
The match. It's picked on and it's in.
Fiorentina.
Beltran. Cataldi. Superb Fiorentina goal.
Lazio versus Fiorentina. Live on Sporty TV. Sportybet sponsors coverage of the Italian Serie A. This Sunday, live on Sporty TV. Athletic Club versus Leganés. Watch live on Sporty TV. Sportybet sponsors of the Spanish La Liga.
All right, thank you for staying with us. This is still Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA in case you've just joined us. And we have been discussing Nigeria's 2025 climate action plans. But let's get back to Professor Matazu in Niamey. And I'd like to ask what you think that government can do to ensure that the national carbon budgets are being adhered to by all sectors.
Okay, thank you very much once again. I think the issue is involvement. In a sort of, I will advise that for the country to continue to use CDD approach, community-driven development approach, whereby first we establish the inventory from available works and also literature of these resources that we could also turn into carbon projects in form of forest resources, as Professor Awal mentioned, and my sister. So we have abundance of such resources, and also it has also high regenerative also capacity. And there are also modern farming activities, climate smart agricultural practices. In the Sahel here, they are using different method of farmer managed natural regeneration model, whereby they nurture and also trim down the tree species. And especially Phaedorbia albida, the Gao tree, has a very, very excellent phenomena, what is called a reverse phenomena, whereby it flourishes during the dry season, and also it goes dormant during the rainy season. So it doesn't compete in terms of water resources, and in terms of minerals and also sunlight with the plants and crops. And it also attracts atmospheric nitrogen and converts it into soil nitrogen, and thereby creating a lot of increase in the yield by increasing the soil fertility. So I will advise, especially National Climate Change Council, to take more coordinated approach. Abundant resources exist in the country that could be converted into carbon projects. And being the NCC, being the IPCC, also focal points. So you need to do more of this coordination with the different sectors. So I advise at the WMO Regional Climate Center, we can also partner with NCC to establish user interface platforms from different sectors so that we have available baseline data of these resources that could be converted into carbon projects that will attract a lot of funding from development partners and also climate financing. So in putting the users also in the driver's seat, you create more clear-cut two-way communication, whereby they also play a role in determining the nature of this. As I will mention also, we could have community agroforestry. So many World Bank projects demonstrated this in the past, and I think also the country could adopt, whereby if you check in the last 70, 80 years, in any community you go to this country, either northern or southern community, there has to be a forest around the community, what we call Dajin Gomna. So we could also bring back some of this social agroforestry with benefits. It has been practiced in Senegal and many parts of the Sahel under the Great Green Wall project. So involvement of communities, creating a strata of initiatives that will have a two-way approach will really create more benefits. I've seen that as a country, we didn't benefit more from carbon credit, but there is abundant resources that we could do that. I will give an example, like our national parks. So NCC could take a lead, collaborate with Federal Ministry of Environment. And also, this gazetted forest reserve, we could calculate the amount of carbon it will sequester because it's already protected. And we could also come up with individual forest carbon credit project from each of the national forest reserve that we have. And we have a lot of other projects also that will attract carbon credits in terms of renewable energy and also urban renewal and also transportation, also conversion to which the country is doing very well on this. So we need to do more of documentation as NCC and partners. So document these good practices and then also report it and showcase best practices to the development partners. I tell you, Nigeria is at the center of all development partners because of our resources, because of our potentials, because also of our strong policies. So I think we need to do more of coordination. And I think my sister is doing well, but there's still room to do more because Africa, we bear the burden of adaptation. more than 90% of our budgets in African countries we have seen is trying to respond to extreme events. And the cost of adaptation is over 30 to 50 billion annually. So it's something that could be faced in all strata through adaptation, through mitigative measures. But a lot of resources, a lot of potentials do exist in the country. So I advise my sister to open her arms and also create 2 layers of collaboration within the parallel at the federal level and also at the national level. And let the state also take the ownership, be involving also the governors, because they are the chief entry point of all the states also. And a lot of them are doing very well in terms of this. So let's document these projects and let's see how we can publicize them. And we could use that to attract more funding. I tell you, many partners are very interested to come to the country, but we need to do a lot of some homework. So by having this, I think we stand a better chance to attract more carbon projects in one way, and also controlling our environmental degradation in the other way. Thank you for the questions.
Professor Matazu, for your contribution to this conversation. Let's bring in Rep Igbo into this conversation now. The president, talking about food security, the president said the country is implementing climate-smart agricultural practices to enhance food security while reducing environmental impact. How far do you think this will take us as a country?
A whole lot, because I'm happy you said, the president said, it's coming from him, it's coming from the top, and everyone needs to key in. Once you do climate-smart agriculture, you are producing and not necessarily damaging or degrading the land. You can do that using modern technologies. You can do that employing renewable energy. In some areas, like I said before, you do irrigation, people can farm, you still grow trees, economic trees, and then you still have people, farming in an area that's small fruits and other things are grown. But more importantly, if you are doing, you are farming at industrial level, which is the only way to be able to overcome food insecurity or food challenge, you have to do it in such a way that you still preserve the land. You don't just do farming now. Nobody's doing farming and then degrading and destroying the land. So for Mr. President to have said that, and not only that, I would like you to also acknowledge that in structuring his ministries, he said he's Minister of Agriculture and Food Security. So it's not as if one has set out just to be present, but you see that you set out your plans, how you want to approach a situation, and you begin to approach it. I could also digress a little bit and talk about what he said in his inaugural speech on power. And he was able to sign the bill that was passed under his predecessor. He signed it in less than 10 days after he assumed office. Signed that bill, I think, on the 8th of June, 2023. This Electricity Act that we are talking about today. So I know that he realizes the immense potential we have in agriculture, and that if we can combine whatever we are doing using climate-smart agriculture as an approach, that we'll be able to achieve what we want and still achieve low greenhouse gas emission, inclusive growth, and sustainable economic development by mainstreaming these climate change actions that we're talking about. So for Mr. President and the nation, I think the door is wide open, opportunities abound. And of course, if you recall some of the things he said there at Abu Dhabi, one is to talk about this climate smart agriculture, and of course, asking for people to join. He talked about the green bond, asking investors to join. That's why I said he was the chief marketing officer. He also talked about that we are developing infrastructure for compressed natural gas and electric vehicles. And of course, you are probably aware that he has given approval to the Northeast Development Commission to deploy electric vehicles. So when you combine these pronouncements and see the actions that are following, you will not have any doubt that Mr. President is putting all the blocks and bricks in place for us to be able to arrive at where we're supposed to be.
All right, Representative Olibo, thank you very much. Let me get back to the DG. I've been wondering if the upcoming green bond, can provide enough domestic financial support for Nigeria's climate initiatives, and indeed, what measures are in place to ensure that there is transparency and accountability in managing all of the finance that you're able to put together for all of this.
So the green bonds is one of, again, Nigeria is one of the first countries, and actually the first country in Africa to develop a green bond, and that was why it was very successful. The green bond is a low-hanging fruit entrance for us to be able to drive our mitigation and adaptation. One of the two main strings of the green bond is renewable energy, afforestation, and reforestation. It's actually loans on the government. Yes, it is.
Okay.
The government has provided that as an entry point for partnership with private sector. And so again, private sector has to come in and own it. I would not say that it's sufficient. We are looking for different streams of income. Is one of the stream of income that should be taken advantage of and should be utilized effectively and efficiently. And talking about transparency, of course, as part of the action plan, is that we report what is being done. And of course, you can see that in the you can see very clearly in the budget, the debt management office, the calculations of the green bond and where it has gone to, and you can also request that as well. So there's transparency with regards to knowing who has received what and what has been used for what. So that is being reported. Permit me to use this opportunity to just touch on some things that we had earlier discussed, which is just to touch again about awareness creation and climate literacy. I wanted to add that one of the things we're also doing this year is to launch a maiden journal, which will be a quarterly journal on climate accountability and transparency. The journal is bringing in experts, academic, bringing in policymakers to speak on what they are doing with regards to climate change. What we're doing is to make sure that every MDA would have a copy of that journal, and schools as well will have a copy of that journal. So that's one of the things we're doing with regards to climate literacy updates. And then just to touch again on the Trump, permit me to touch on this. Like I explained earlier, the fact that the United Nations is hoping to leave the Paris Agreement does not negate the fact that they are still parties to the UNFCCC, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And in law, we know that there is the main law, the mother law, which is the convention, and that still holds them accountable to what it is they have agreed to. So they are still parties to the convention, whether they want to leave the Paris Agreement or not. And addressing carbon credit, it's good to understand that if you want to take on forests as your means of carbon credit, the forest has to stay. You can't cut it. If you cut it, you lose. And that's one of the challenges that when you have wildfires for the forest in the developing countries, that's one of the challenges they're having with the carbon market. The carbon credits that come from forest is good, is low-hanging fruit. But one of the challenges is how durable it is. And can we really, and you're talking about high integrity carbon credits, can we measure if it still stays? So they use the satellites to measure whether the forest is still in existence. And so that can be a bit wobbly. But where we can really cash in big time with regards to carbon credits is getting those infrastructures. For instance, the carbon capture and storage and utilization is a technology that we can harness. Again, another technology we can harness is the technology that captures methane, produces graphite and hydrogen. So these are low-hanging fruits, or rather investment opportunities that will help Nigeria to balance her net zero emissions and also help us to really get the high integrity carbon credits that we want to sell. Not the credits that you sell for $3, $20. No. You want to be able to get the big credits. And to get the big credits is to avoid double counting and also to ensure that your carbon credits are high integrity carbon credits.
Okay, you haven't touched, there's something you didn't touch on, the questions put to you.
Yes.
what measures are in place to ensure transparency and accountability in the use of allocated funds for climate action?
In the use for allocated funds for climate actions. So again, is reporting what is being done, to measure what is being done. And so when we send it out, for instance, the green bonds, it's out there, it's public, right? So you request to use it, and so it's being reported.
Okay.
So those would be those are the measures.
Okay. Let's bring in Professor Farouk Abdulsalam into this conversation. Now we're running out of time actually, and let's look at the theme for the 2025, Climate Change Act of 2021. It's talking about amplifying nature-based climate solutions. So how can we begin? It's a theme, yes, but how can Nigerians begin to achieve this? Because we really need to do that. We need to be aware that climate change is dangerous, and this is the only country we have. If anything happens to our country, it just goes down or go down with it, because we have to take most people, believe me, more than 80% of Nigerians don't even know what climate change is all about. They don't. When you talk to them, say, I beg, that is Oyibo Wahala. I don't want to talk about it, but how can we be able to achieve nature-based climate solutions in Nigeria by bringing everybody on board? In 1 minute.
Yeah, I think less than 1 minute.
Okay.
The answer is straightforward. Is to cascade these discussions to the grassroots, make them aware, and make them take the ownership of the process, especially of nature-based, solution. But first is to understand the entire concept and the risks associated with the climate change, which is, we are already feeling it. Every single year, every preceding year is hotter than the past year. People are losing, farm produce from, the erratic rainfall we are facing. People are businessmen and women are losing a lot from the heat,
And the flooding.
Yeah, flooding, and so the impact is already, there. So it's just to tell the people this is what actually is happening. Because some of them are confused.
Yes.
They are really confused. What is really happening? Tell them that this is what is happening. And the bitter truth is it's going to continue to happen. And then you have to do something. And that is why I always emphasize on adaptation. And we can achieve that without having this, grassroots, involvement in the entire process.
All right. We just have about a couple of minutes. I guess that's about time to make one more trip to Niamey, where we have... I
wanted to add...
In 30 seconds, please, before I go to Niamey.
Yeah, you were asking her on the issue of, green bond, transparency and all that. And I wanted to observe that, look, before we issue the first green bond, renowned organization like the Moody played a role, investigated and rated out excellent. And it was because that was successful. That's why we made 10 billion in the first one. And then we issued the second one, we made 15 billion. They were properly, because you tie these funds to specific projects that are verifiable. So I think we are continuing along that route. I think that's what encouraged Mr. President to say, come.
Yes,
all right. Let me now get to Professor Matazu quickly. And with 2030 fast approaching, how does Nigeria's climate strategy compare with those of other African nations and indeed other developing countries?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think I can say as a country we are not doing bad. So there are a lot of potentials, but we need to do more of coordination at the national and sub-national level, policy-wise, program-wise, and also we have seen a lot of direction and policy thrusts from the government, and also such activities and actions being captured within the government budget lines. But a lot of potential lies within the country. As my sister, I would suggest maybe we could have a climate fair annually, whereby you bring a lot of investors and also a lot of practitioners into that, brings some projects that captures carbon and also climate mitigations. So, and with this, we can also document a lot of best practices. So, as a country, we are not, we're doing well, but we need to dust up some policies. Like National Framework for Climate Services is one policy that shows how serious a country is regarding cost damages and loss, and also early warning system. So we need to ratify that quickly, and then also do a lot of groundwork regarding community involvement by putting the communities in the driver's seats. As Awal mentioned, these communities really needs to do more on what they happen at their environment. So I advise that we look at climate globally.
Okay, Professor Matazu, we've run out of time. My director is saying we should round up, and we thank you so much for your contribution. Professor Masoud Bako Matazu joined us from NIAMI, is a climate service expert, World Meteorological Organization, WMO, Regional Climate Center there in NIAMI, and the immediate past DG of NIMET here in Nigeria. We thank you so much for your contribution to this conversation. We appreciate you. And we also were joined by Rep. Samuel Onuigbo, former member of the House of Representatives and sponsor of Nigeria's Climate Change Act, and Southeast representative on the board of Northeast Development Commission, NEDC. Thank you so much for coming, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Professor Awal Farouk Abdusalam, Professor of Applied Meteorology and Environmental Sustainability, Kaduna State University. We appreciate your contribution to the conversation. And Dr. Nkiruka Chidia Maduke, Special Presidential Envoy on Climate Change and DG CEO, National Council on Climate Change Secretariat. We thank you so much. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. We've not talked about the Youth Summit on Climate Change, but I believe this is a continuing conversation. Thank you so much, gentlemen and lady, for coming on this program. We appreciate your contribution. And Nigerians, please wake up to the impact of climate change. Remember, this is the only country we have. And that's it on Good Morning Nigeria for today. Thanks again for joining us. I am Juma Yusuf.
And I'm Victor Azu. Tomorrow is another day. Let's keep the date.